Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you are new. My name is Kai, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into today's video. So for today, we're going to be doing some pretty simplistic spring nails, and this is not a nail set that I was planning on doing today, but considering how intricate my last nail set was, I figured it'd be nice to do something that was kind of chill. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing that I like to do before I do any type of nail work is cleanse my implements with a little bit of alcohol. I always like to make sure to clean all of my products and implements with barbicide prior to sitting down and doing my nails, but I find that this is a nice just extra measure that I take because I'm a little bit paranoid of bacteria transfer and I just like to play it safe. And with that being said, I also like to cleanse my nails with alcohol as well. To kick things off, we're going to get into our nail prep, and to start off, I'm just going to gently push back my cuticles using my cuticle pusher. And usually I don't have too much to do here. I just want to make sure that everything is lifted off of the surface of my nails. And if you are doing these nails to last, which I'm not, this is definitely a necessary step to take if you want your nails to last a lot longer. And after lifting up those cuticles, I'm going to use my cuticle clean bit to further lift them and also just to get rid of the extra cuticle that's stuck to my nails. For this bit in particular, I do like to use a speed of around 7,000 to 9,000 RPMs because these bits are designed to not dig into the nails. But if you are using a cuticle bit that is not this one in particular, I would recommend using them at the lowest speed possible. So for me personally, I would say anything between 3,000 and 5,000 RPMs is a good speed to work with. And now that I have the cuticles and my eponychium nice and lifted, I'm just going to slightly cut back my eponychium. Now, this is a cosmetic procedure and is not necessary, nor does it affect the longevity of your nail sets. So if this isn't your cup of tea, as I always say, you can go ahead and skip this step. I do like to do this because I find that 1, it just makes the nail set look a lot cleaner, and 2, I have a habit of snagging my skin later on in the process when I'm filing my nails. So this just makes the process a lot less dangerous for me because it has happened in the past where I've accidentally snagged the skin around my cuticle area and it was really just not fun. But again, you can definitely skip this step. So that is pretty much all of the nail prep that I'm going to be doing for today. I don't like to file over the surface of my nails or anything like that, simply because I am doing a peel off nail set, so that's not necessary for me. So now we're going to get into our peel off base coat, and for me personally, I like to use my Maycart peel it off base coat and a little bit of cuticle oil. The cuticle oil is not necessary, but because I like to take these off directly afterwards, it just makes the process a lot less strenuous for my nails. And after I've got the cuticle oil, I'm going to go in with 2 coats of my Maycart Peel It Off base coat. And I do make sure to cure each layer for a full 60 seconds. So now that our nails are nice and ready, we're gonna go ahead and size out our nail tips. So for today, I was not in the mood to do any type of acrylic or polygel. So we're gonna be doing some gel extensions today. And for me personally, I like using these full cover nail tips that I got from Shein. And I really do like these nail tips because they have a nice apex to work with. However, if you are doing these nails to last, I would not recommend these nail tips because they're quite thin. And with that being said, I will try and find a good alternative for a stronger, more structurally sound nail set. So as I mentioned, we're going to be doing some gel extensions. So I'm going to be curing these on using my portable lamp. And to help me adhere these, I'm going to be using some Model 1's builder gel. So for me personally, I like to scuff up the inside of the nail tip first, just to make sure that there's enough friction for these to actually stick. Otherwise, these will pop off super easily and we do not want that. And once I have it nice and scuffed, I do like to apply a little bit of that gel just on top of the area that I scuffed up. And I do like to add a bit more gel just into the center of my actual nail. And that is because, again, these nail tips do have a bit of an apex, and I want to make sure that I have enough product to work with before I try and press the nail tip down. And once I've got the nail tip nice and applied and my gel is nice and even, I'm going to cure that underneath my portable lamp. So now that my nail tips are nice and cured on, I'm gonna go ahead and cut them down to my desired length. And as I mentioned before, these nail tips are kind of thin, so I did accidentally crack my thumbnail. So if you are using these nail tips, do be careful because if you press them down too hard, they can kind of split. And it's kind of unfortunate, especially if you want to keep these nice and long. But luckily today, I am gonna be doing some short almond. And with that being said, after I cut them down using my tip cutters, I'm just gonna cut them into a rough almond shape using some straight edge nail clippers. And once I have that rough shape, I'm gonna go ahead and smooth everything out using my 80/80 grit nail file. now that the shape is nice and neat, I'm gonna go ahead and take a ceramic bit and work this around my cuticle area just to go ahead and seal everything. we are finished with our extensions and now we're ready to move on to some nail art. And while we're doing some color mixing, this is the nail set that we're going to be doing today. Again, it's one that I wasn't planning on doing today, but I really loved how simple yet effective this nail design was. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just put all of my colors onto my mixing plate. And luckily for me, the colors aren't too far from what I usually have, so I don't have to do too much color mixing, which, as you guys know, I do a lot of. So yeah, that was really nice. I really enjoyed that. And by the way, if you are a beginner nail tech, I would definitely recommend getting a set of every color of the rainbow plus like white or black and just mixing the colors that you need instead of going out and buying all of these different types of colors for every single scenario, because it can get very expensive and you'll just end up with a lot of colors that you won't end up using most of the time. I definitely do feel like it's a better way to go about your colors. So now that our colors are mixed, the first thing that I'm going to do is paint a pinkish nude gel polish onto my middle finger, my ring finger, and my thumbnail. And because this is technically a builder gel, I'm trying my best to keep this application pretty thin because I don't want these nails to be thicker than the rest. And just to make sure that everything is pretty much even, I'm going to go in with 2 layers of this color. So now we're ready to get into the actual nail art, and to start out, I'm going to do a brown French tip on my middle finger, and this is pretty straightforward. I'm not going too deep or too shallow or anything like that. I'm just going to be creating a pretty simple French tip, and I'm not focusing on making this French tip too perfect because the majority of this nail is going to be covered up by the flower a little bit later. And I'm going to paint the entirety of my pinky nail using that same brown, and I'm making sure to get this as close to my cuticle area as possible without flooding it in the process. And before curing, I always like to make sure to wipe down the sides, and I'm going to go ahead and cure this for about 30 seconds. And of course, just to make sure that everything is nice and even and opaque, I'm going to go in with a second layer. So now we're moving on to our pointer finger, and this one is going to be a 3D chrome nail. So I'm going to start by creating some 3D swirls on the pointer finger before I do any type of chrome work. And to create those 3D swirls, I'm going to be using some rhinestone glue as always. Now when I am doing something like this and I want the nails to remain as 3D as possible, I like to do it in sections. So after maybe 1 or 2 swirls, I do like to stop and cure them in between just to make sure that nothing starts drooping and falling. Luckily for us today, it doesn't have to be super 3D, so you could get away with doing this in one complete layer and curing it all together, but I find that for me, it's kind of stressful trying to do everything at once, so I just like to cure in between. And once I've got those swirls on, I'm going to take a very translucent black and I'm going to paint that over the entirety of the nail. And to get this translucent black, I did mix some black gel polish with some top coat in specific. The top coat is going to help to make the chrome burnishing a lot shinier and mirror-like. I have found that when I am using black by itself, it kind of has this grainy appearance that I just don't really like. The top coat definitely helps to get rid of that and make it super, super chrome-like. Do bear in mind though that because you are using top coat, you don't want to use too much because it'll start to look kind of see-through. That is something that I did deal with when I was doing this nail set, and after I did the chrome, it was kind of see-through, which wasn't too much of a problem for me. I wasn't going to be wearing these nails for that long anyway, but that is something to look out for. And after I've done the chrome detailing, I'm going to go ahead and top that off with a little bit of top coat, and I'm curing that for a full 60 seconds. So now we're getting into the fun part, and we're going to start on our airbrushing. And I'm going to start by creating a nice airbrush on my pinky nail using this gray. And this is probably one of the first times that I've ever used this gray. And now that I think about it, gray is one of those colors that you really just don't see that often in nail art. And it kind of makes me want to do a gray sort of monochromatic nail set, specifically using gray because it's a color that I just don't really see that often. But anyway, I did do the airbrush on my pinky nail. And now we're going to do a similar airbrush effect on my ring finger, but instead of it being centered, it's going to be just at the tip of the nail. And I am going to be using a brown to help me do this. Now, once that airbrush is done, I'm going to go over those 2 nails using some base coat. And this is because when I do the nail art on top of it, I want to make sure that the surface is nice and smooth, and the base coat is going to help me achieve that. And now we're going to use this turquoise blue to help me create my abstract nail art. And for my ring finger, it's going to be kind of simple. It is following the French tip design, except the center of the nail has a cutout half circle, if that makes sense. And for nail art like this, I always advocate for using longer line art brushes because they will help with stability and just making sure that everything looks nice and neat. And now we're moving on to our pinky nail, which also has some abstract nail art on it. It's pretty difficult to describe what it looks like. It kind of just looks like curvy letter Ys, if that makes any sense. Again, kind of difficult to explain what I'm doing, but it's fairly simple, and when it comes to abstract nail art, you can kind of take your own liberties and do whatever you feel like doing, depending on your own personal tastes. So this is definitely not a process to stress over. So for this part, definitely just take it easy and do whatever you feel like doing. And to finish off these two nails, I'm going to go in with some gold metal beads. For my ring finger, I'm going to do 3 gold beads in the center of that blue abstract line. And for my pinky nail, I'm going to do 2 clusters of gold beads as well as some white pearls. And again, just to make things easier for me, I am going to be curing in between using my mini lamp. These two nails are done, so we're gonna go ahead and top them off with some top coat. And I'm making sure to go over all of the gold beads and pearls as best as possible, just to make sure that they don't end up turning too quickly in the future. So now we're finally going to get onto our middle finger, and to create those flowers, I'm going to be using some clear solid nail glue gel, and I'm just going to take out a good amount of this. And for me personally, I don't have any colored solid nail glue gel, so I do like to mix this with a little bit of gel polish, which I do not recommend doing. I definitely think that it's a lot easier to just buy some sculpting gel that's already colored, but for the sake of convenience, I just ended up mixing it with some gel polish. Do bear in mind that this will change the consistency of the product that you're working with if you do follow this method, and it can definitely lead to a much softer product, which may not be the best in every single scenario. For today, I wasn't too worried about the texture for the most part because I didn't need the flower to sit up and be positioned in a way that like needed to stick up or something like that. And I also didn't mix in too much white gel polish, so for the most part, it was pretty okay, but that is something to be aware of if you are trying this as well. And these petals are pretty simple. Because I am doing something that's supposed to look more natural, I wasn't too concerned with making these petals too perfect. I just took some medium-sized clumps and shaped them into a rough flower petal shape. And to finish off this flower, I'm going to use some rhinestone glue to cure on a couple of metal beads in the center. And of course, to finish off this nail, I'm going to top this with a top coat. So we are finally onto the last nail, and I'll be honest, you guys, I ran out of towels, so that's why I'm using tissue, okay? Don't come for me. Anyway, I'm gonna be airbrushing the center of this nail using this bluish gray color. And before I cure this, I do like to make sure to get rid of any excess gel polish on my skin. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in. Now, because we are doing chrome in this nail, I want to make sure that the surface is nice and smooth. So I'm going to be going over the entire surface of the nail using some matte top coat. And the reason I like using matte is because it does a pretty good job of keeping the chrome nice and isolated to wherever you want the chrome to go. A few of you guys have mentioned that I should also try using top coat instead. So the next time I do chrome, I think I want to try that. But I do really like the matte top coat, and it just works really, really well. And now that I have the matte top coat on, I'm just going to draw a very oblong shape in the center of the nail. And I am drawing this on using some rhinestone glue mixed with a little bit of black gel polish. And once that's on, I'm going to cure that for about 15 seconds. And of course, I'm just following this up with rubbing on the chrome powder. And to finish this off, I'm going to go in with a layer of top coat. So all of the nails are done, and here's what they are looking like. And now we're going to go ahead and finish off this nail set with some cuticle oil. And that completes today's set. I really do hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was really refreshing to just sit down and do a nail set that didn't require me to think too much. And honestly, even though it's pretty simple, I really do feel like it makes a statement. I would have never thought that a chocolate brown and gold and blue would work together this well, but I really do like this nail set, and I just think that it was very refreshing. It just felt nice to do something simple. Now, you guys may argue otherwise, but you guys already know how I get down, so it was nice to do something that was kind of chill. So let me know what you guys think of this one in the comments. If I were to put this nail set on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I would give these nails a good 8.5 out of 10. Now, that's kind of lower than most of my other nail sets, and I think that's just because, one, I like something that's a little bit more intricate and extra because I don't know, that's just me. I don't know, I'm weird. And also, I do think that maybe if I made the flower a bit smaller on the middle finger, it would come together a little bit nicer because you really can't see much of the French tip at all. But other than that, I do think it's a very nice, minimalist, simple nail set. So I do hope that you guys enjoyed this one. But that is all that I have for you guys today. As always, I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in today, and I will see you guys in the next one.